I'm not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, especially when it comes to understanding women. I mean, let's be real, aren't most guys clueless when it comes to understanding them? Some of us might think we've got it all figured out, but do we really? Probably not. Like many guys, I'm just trying to navigate through it all and not mess up too badly. But I've come to realize, it took me a while to see just how clueless I really am when it comes to women, especially my wife. I started noticing signs of her disrespect and possible infidelity about 5 months before I decided to confront the issue. Remember that song? We got married in a whirlwind romance, but I was blind to the warning signs. I met Catherine during my college years at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater. Technically, I was studying party management, though I was more skilled at partying than studying. I also worked as a bouncer at Eskimo Joe's, a popular spot on campus. The bouncers rotated positions throughout the night, from checking IDs at the door to keeping an eye on the crowd. There was always someone stationed at the top of the stairs to prevent any drunken accidents. While on duty, I quickly picked up on the dynamics among the women at the bar. I learned to distinguish who'd be a good match, who wouldn't, and those who might be a bit unpredictable. From my vantage point at the top of the stairs, I had a clear view of the lower floor. I observed from the balcony as the women interacted with the guys downstairs. Some ladies had multiple guys buying them drinks, hoping for a chance to spend some private time together later on. As closing time approached, many girls would solicit drinks from the guys. There was usually a rush of these women leaving just before closing. They'd pretend to head to the restroom before slipping out the back door with the guy who had been buying them drinks. Naturally, this upset some of the men, and sometimes a bouncer had to step in to calm things down. I could spot the girls who played this game often, and as someone working there, I'd sometimes give a heads up to friends or even a guy I thought was nice and didn't deserve trouble. Others, I let figure it out on their own. One Saturday night after a home game, amidst the chaos of drunken antics, a stunning girl stumbled into my arms, completely wasted. She was beyond drunk, claiming she didn't even know where she was. She couldn't find her friends, but I had a hunch. They were known for slipping out after drinking all night for free. I was pretty sure they had left. It was past closing time, and they usually made their exit when the last call was announced. Just then, as Catherine was practically hanging on me, the guy she'd been getting drinks from approached. He looked at me sharply and grabbed her arm. "Come on, Kelly," he insisted, "let's get out of here. I thought you vanished because of me." That's when I realized her name might be Kelly. I was about to let her go with him when she snapped out of her daze and questioned him. "I'm not Kelly, I'm Catherine. Who are you? Why should I leave with you? And where are Cindy and the others?" I was supposed to leave with them when the bar closed. The man yanked her arm and insisted, "Kelly, Catherine, whatever. I've been buying you drinks all night, and now you're coming home with me." Catherine snapped back to reality and tried to break free from his grasp. She looked frightened as she protested, "No, I don't know you, and I don't want to go with you. Just leave me alone." Despite his efforts to drag her away, she resisted. It was clear she didn't want to go with him, so I intervened and guided her to a nearby chair, positioning myself between them. "Hey, buddy," I said firmly, "the lady doesn't want to go with you. Why don't you just listen to her and leave before things escalate?" His expression turned hostile, and he shoved me backward. "She's mine, and we're leaving now. Stay out of it if you know what's good for you." I took a step back, then swiftly grabbed his arm and pinned it behind his back, causing him to yelp in pain as a fellow bouncer approached. "You need a hand, Dave?" "Nah," this guy tried to take the lady, but she wasn't having it. He needed a clear no, and I think he gets it now, right? With that, I lifted the jerk's arm a bit more, and he cried out in pain, rising on his toes, "Yeah, I get it. Just let me go." I escorted him to the door and onto the sidewalk. Giving him a gentle shove, I warned, "Okay, scram, pal. We've got your face on record, so don't stir up trouble, or security will handle it next time." Back inside, I found a few waitresses tending to Catherine, who had passed out in her chair. "Damn," I muttered. Patty approached me, saying, "Dave, Catherine's in my dorm. If you help me get her back and settle her in, I'll take care of her from there." So, I did just that, and it's how I earned a place as one of Catherine's favorite people. The next weekend, while working on a Friday night, a gorgeous woman bounded up to me, enveloped me in a hug, then planted a long, carefree kiss on my lips. Pushing her back, I asked, "What's all this about? You really came through last Saturday." Patty filled me in on how you stopped that guy from taking me home. Then you made sure we got back to the dorm safely and helped Patty get me settled. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there. I didn't even realize my friends had ditched me after last call, leaving me behind. I was supposed to leave with them, but they bailed without me. And I missed their final call. For the next 2 years, Catherine was always by my side whenever I was working. We grew close and eventually started dating a few months after that incident. After we graduated, we tied the knot. Catherine's got her quirks, she's big on parties, dancing, good food, and wine, but it's all good. We've got good jobs and no kids, so we can indulge a bit. Well, maybe not as much as she'd like, which annoys her when I say we have to wait until payday to splurge. Our money arguments often circle back to my wealthy parents. They own a big farming operation and several parcels of land back home, along with a year-round resort for fishing and hunting. Whenever I say we can't afford something, Catherine usually snaps back that I should just ask my parents for it, calling me an idiot for not taking advantage of their wealth. She's convinced I should go back home and join my dad's management team to rake in the cash and be a big shot in a small pond. But I've repeatedly explained that I'm here to gain real-world experience and learn the ropes before returning to our family business. The current resort manager plans to retire in 3 years, and I'll step into his role then. But that's not fast enough for Catherine. Lately, she's been making snide remarks about my earning abilities. Sometimes she'd go out with her friends after work and return home broke. For the past 5 months though, that changed. She'd still come home upset, and I'd often have to accompany her to the office the next day to retrieve her car. Occasionally, I'd find her asleep on the living room floor in the morning, leaving me puzzled about how she managed to get inside if she passed out outside the door. Finally, after some heated arguments, I decided to uncover the truth. Like many men facing similar situations, I resorted to buying voice recorders and placing them discreetly in Catherine's purse, car, and even under her office desk. I tapped our landline and invested in the necessary gear to record her cell phone calls. What I discovered shattered my love for her. She was having an affair with a coworker. Those late nights and Saturday outings with her friends over the past 5 months were actually rendezvous with Gregory Anders. He was the epitome of an irritating salesman, arrogant, with a fake smile, and constantly ingratiating himself to those above him. His only redeeming quality, or perhaps not, was that he not only was the top earner in her company but also had family ties to the business. Reviewing my notes, 2 things became clear. Whenever I scaled back on our lavish outings, entertainment, fine wine, or theater trips, Catherine vented loudly at work about feeling mistreated by me. Gregory, noticing her discontent, began shadowing the women during their evenings out. He splurged on them, showered them with drinks, and showcased a lavish lifestyle until he caught Catherine's attention. Once he had her hooked, he persuaded her to join him for lunch at upscale bistros and dinners at fancy restaurants after work. Eventually, Catherine succumbed to his advances and ended up in bed with Gregory. Shockingly, she followed his orders without question, even when he threatened to withdraw his generosity. Sex in a restaurant bathroom? Fine by her. I even had recordings of him instructing her to limit our sexual encounters because he didn't want sloppy seconds. He demanded she ensure there was a gap of more than 24 hours between our encounters, or he'd dump her, saying, "I won't touch my woman after she's been with someone worse. Figure it out, but you better be clean when you come to me." Our intimacy quickly dwindled, revolving around Gregory's out-of-town sales trips and Sundays, which he never spent with her. Sundays became my only guaranteed day for intimacy. Truth be told, I stopped caring once I learned the truth. I kept up the pretense of our relationship only because I was gearing up for a divorce. Thankfully, we hadn't been married long, just 27 months, and didn't have kids. Upon discovering Catherine's affair with good old Greg, she hates being called Kate now, we leased a nice apartment and bought 2 new cars. She insisted on a BMW, naturally. I was content with my trusty 2010 F, F-150 Super Crew 4x4, bought new after college. But whenever we went out, she refused to ride in my truck, insisting on taking her car. As a result, we rarely venture out together these days. I only maintain the facade enough to keep her unaware. Today marks the beginning of my revenge on Kate and Greg. She's got a date with him tonight, meeting him at the mall at 6:30 p.m. They're off for drinks, then dinner at a new French spot, followed by dancing. She tells me she's heading to a baby shower with the girls. Kate finished her shower at 5:30 and began getting dressed, ready to leave by 6 o'clock, just enough time to meet Greg. Waiting in the hallway by our bedroom door, I embraced her as she stepped out. I kissed her and began caressing her. "Dave, stop it. You know I have to meet the girls at 6:30. I don't have time, and you'll mess up my makeup. I'm sorry, sweetie. I just need you. How about a quickie now and we'll have a proper one later when you get back?" "No, Dave, I don't have time." I gently guided her back until she reached the edge of the bed. I already knew she had on thigh-length stockings and bikini panties. As she touched the bed, she fell back, and I moved over her. After kissing her, I pulled back. She complained about her ruined makeup and feeling dirty. Rushing to the bathroom to clean up, I intercepted her and led her to the door and down the hall. Passing by the table where her purse sat, I handed it to her. "Sorry it took a while, honey," I said. "I really needed that. Here's your purse. You can still make it on time if you hurry. Tell the girls I made you late. I'll clean up here. Can't go out like this." "You're fine, honey. We used to do this a lot, remember? No one will ever know. Now go and have fun." Catherine shot me an angry glare and headed to her car. It took all my effort not to burst out laughing. I stayed put, waiting for the tape to reveal what the hell was going through Greg's mind that night. Oh, he was fuming at Kate, guys. I could hear their passionate exchange as they entered his apartment. There was a lot of shuffling and rustling. Then Kate said, "Greg, honey, I'm sorry, but Dave insisted on making love to me before I left. Let me clean up before we go to bed." "What?" "I told you to keep that guy away from you when I'm around." I heard a sharp sound, and Kate screamed. "Now, get yourself into the bathroom and clean up." I couldn't catch any more sound because Kate must have left her purse in the living room, and they were in the bedroom. But deep down, I felt satisfied knowing I had provoked Greg and possibly even upset Kate. I didn't see any bruises, so I assumed he had just given her a slap. The next couple of times I knew Kate would be with Greg, I made sure she slept with me instead. Actually, every time she left the house, I tried to leave my mark on her in case she was meeting Greg instead of doing what she claimed. Greg grew increasingly furious as Kate kept coming to him after me. He called her names and accused her of cheating nearly every time. She cried before he treated her roughly. It was satisfying to see her leave the house in fear of Greg. Then he'd be harsh with her, and she'd cry even more. To my knowledge, he didn't hit her again after that initial incident, and I suspected it was just a slap on the butt. The last encounter she had with Greg was rough. I'd reached my limit and decided to end my revenge. I set everything up to serve her the divorce papers during her date on Saturday night. I even gave Greg's wife copies of the records and photos I had. No, they weren't scandalous shots, just images of them dining, dancing, and kissing in his car. That was sufficient. I paid extra for the papers to be delivered after they arrived at his father's company apartment in the city. Both Greg and his father used it for their extramarital affairs. Oh, and I also sent Greg's mother pictures of his father and his secretary in compromising positions. Why not spread some kindness? The maintenance man met Greg and Kate in the condo lobby. After serving her, he handed Greg the letter I had prepared. The process server said to Greg, "I've been instructed to give you this letter, Mr. Anders. Mr. Stevens has outlined his actions so you understand what's been happening over the past few months and what to expect upon your return." In the letter, I detailed the evidence I had against him and Kate, mentioning that I'd shared it with his mother and wife. I also questioned if he enjoyed receiving my leftovers from Kate, mentioning that each time she visited him, I ensured he got a piece of me to play with. Unfortunately, Greg became so enraged that he struck Kate. He managed to hit her twice before the guard intervened and restrained him. I overheard the guard summoning the police and an ambulance for Kate. I felt sick to my stomach. While I wanted to inflict emotional pain on Kate, I never wished for her physical harm. I hadn't anticipated Greg would resort to violence against her. About an hour later, I received a call from the hospital. They requested my presence for paperwork and to bring Kate home. I chuckled and replied, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't do that. Kate and I are divorcing, and she doesn't reside with me. Why not reach out to her lover to collect her? Well, I guess I'll do that." "What's his name?" I provided Greg's name and number. After a moment of silence, she informed me, "Sir, I regret to inform you that I can't reach Mr. Anders. Your wife is in the emergency room due to severe injuries inflicted by Mr. Anders this evening. He's currently in police custody, sir." "Okay, here are 2 more phone numbers. Maybe one of them can help." I provided the phone numbers of Kate's parents and one of her 2 best friends. I'm not sure who picked her up. It's been almost 4 days, and I haven't heard from her. On Wednesday night, I left work and found Kate waiting for me by my truck. As she saw me, she slowly exited her vehicle and approached me with tears in her eyes. "David, honey," she said, "can we please talk about everything, please?" "No, Kate, there's not much to talk about. You cheated, and I caught you. Now we're getting divorced," I responded. "But I don't want a divorce, Dave. Can't we just get it over with? I have nowhere to go. Please, I need to go home, Dave. I promise I'll feel better if you just let me come home and let me make it up to you." "No, that's not going to happen, baby. I heard Greggy had to move into your little love nest. Why don't you move in with him and his daddy? I bet they'd be happy to take care of you." I walked around Kate and got into my truck. As I closed the door, she stood there crying. She remained motionless until I was out of sight. Now, here was another thing I didn't understand about women. Kate worked full-time and made almost $36,000 a year. Why didn't she have enough money to rent a place like I did? Why did she move into that damn apartment with Greg and his father? What I learned from the police report is that Greg and his father beat her so badly that she passed away after 3 days in the hospital. She apparently angered them when she refused to be alone with them. According to the statement she gave to the police before her death, she believed she was Greg's mistress and they would marry after the divorce. Now I feel even more that Kate ruined our marriage in pursuit of a better life. My foolish revenge ended up costing Kate her life. I looked up and said, "Bartender, give me another. We got to get this over with." I was floating, and the world was spinning, and then a goddamn mule kicked me in the head. There were dozens of people standing over me. I peeked under the goddess's short skirt. She looked down at me, her face reflected shock, and she fell to her knees beside me. "David, is that really you? Why the hell were you so drunk you fell off your bar stool, Patty?" "Yeah, Dave. I'd ask how you're doing, but I don't think you're in any condition to tell me. Let's get you up and see if we can sober you up a little." Patty and one of the bouncers helped me to her cubicle. She gave me coffee. I ran to the bathroom twice to get rid of the coffee and most of my insides. God, I'm glad I don't have to clean up after myself. After a couple of hours, I was at least able to talk without too much trouble. Patty demanded an explanation of what I was doing there so drunk. I told her the whole story you just read and said, "So you see, Patty, I killed her. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I hated her for what she did to me, but I didn't want her dead." Patty sat there, stunned. Her gaze bore into me, mouth agape. Eventually, she reached out, pulling me into a tight hug. "Dave, yeah, some of what you did was pretty harsh, but you didn't kill her. That was Greg's doing. You couldn't have predicted that." Patty stared into the distance for a moment, then spoke softly, "You know, Dave, I bear some responsibility too. I regret not telling you about Catherine during college. Even when you two were together, she was eyeing other guys. If they had money or were willing to spend it on her, she'd go for them. Sometimes, when she wasn't with you at Joe's, she'd be out with some wealthy guy. Ever wondered where she got the cash for those fancy clothes? I kept quiet because you weren't exceptional then. And I didn't think you'd fall for her games and marry her. You worked at Joe's, you knew what kind of people frequented there. I figured you were just like the other guys, only interested in her looks. So, I have my share of the blame. I sat there, gazing at Patty. Even in college, huh? Man, women are just so confusing. I thought things were going great. Dave, don't lump all women together like that. You know not all of us are like her. If you judge based on that, then I should avoid you because all men are like Greg, right? But I know that's not true. I've worked alongside you for 2 years. I know who you are. How many times have you brought home drunk women and made sure they were safe? You just have to realize that women are individuals, like men. There are good ones and not so good ones. We might think differently and be more driven by emotions, but it's not impossible to understand, is it? Patty grinned, tugging at my hand. Let's go, Dave, I'll give you a ride home. By the way, where do you live? If you're really interested in figuring out women, once things calm down, I'll give you some pointers, deal? I hope you enjoyed this story. Please subscribe to the channel for new stories.